Ranger Ray is giving more than 30 years to the Greenwoods, calling the forest his true address. His days belong to the trees, the trails, and the wild things that make the ridges home. His partner is a black lab named Buddy, steady and brave, matching him step for step on every patrol. Together they know these woods like old friends know each other's silences. On calm days they move along narrow trails, reading tracks pressed into soft earth, noting scat left on stone, checking the fragile places where the forest speaks its secrets. They listen for what the wild is trying to say. Ray knows the language of bent grass and broken twigs. Buddy knows the scent of every creature that passes through their territory. They work in rhythm, two halves of the same purpose. Then the rain came, and would not stop. For days it hammered the ridges, turned the hills gray and the air heavy with moisture that clung to everything. The easy river that usually sang gentle songs went angry and high. Mud-brown water climbing and rolling, tearing at the banks, swallowing the shore inch by desperate inch. Trees snapped like matchsticks, stone and soil slid down the mountainside in great wounded gashes. Every duty turned urgent and dangerous. The ranger crew split into small teams, spread across the map to read the damage fast and help whatever needed a human hand. Communications crackled with reports, washed out roads, fallen bridges, wildlife displaced and confused. Ray drove the old pickup with the rattling passenger door, the one he kept meaning to fix but never did. Buddy sat in the back seat, alert as always, ears up, eyes fixed on the swollen river that paralleled the muddy road. The sky hung low and bruised. Thunder rolled across the valley like distant artillery. Lightning cracked the darkness into bright white fragments. Wind whistled through the seams of the truck, turning the cab into a hollow drum that amplified every sound of the storm's fury. Rain came in sheets, so thick the wipers could barely keep up. Buddy suddenly sprang up from his usual calm and barked sharp, staring through the rain-streaked glass like he'd spotted a distress flare. Ray hit the brakes hard, leaned forward to follow the dog's gaze, saw only sheets of rain and a river gone completely wild. Before Ray could say a word, before he could even process what Buddy had seen, the black lab launched out the door the moment Ray cracked it open. A black streak toward the flooded bank.
Ray's heart hit his throat. He shouted the dog's name, voice raw with sudden fear, but the storm swallowed his words whole, and Buddy disappeared into the brown rush of water. Ray slid down the muddy embankment to the edge, boots skidding and sliding, eyes hunting desperately through the chaos, not sure what could drive his careful, trained companion to leap without command into such danger. Then he saw it. A small, tawny shape, fighting to breathe. Going under, inch by terrible inch, a mountain lion cub soaked through, shaking, eyes wide with the kind of fear that belongs to something too young to understand death but old enough to feel it coming. The little body clawed weakly at the current, movement slowing, strength fading, giving up to the relentless pull of water that cared nothing for want or need. But he barked once, low and fierce, and drove straight in. He cut across the churning water with powerful strokes, muscles tight as rope under his black coat, head held high against the surge that wanted to drag him down. He reached the cub, took the scruff in his jaws, gentle and sure despite the chaos around them. The river grabbed them both immediately, spun them like autumn leaves caught in a gutter stream. Buddy dug deep, paws working in long, deliberate strokes, angling for shore with everything he had. Ray ran along the bank, slipping and stumbling, calling encouragement. "Good boy! Hold on! You can do this!" Ready to dive in himself if either of them went under, knowing full well the water could take all three of them if it wanted to. His lungs burned with fear and exertion. Halfway back, the cub went limp in Buddy's grip. Breath thin and ragged, little body soft and cold from shock and exhaustion. Buddy tightened his hold and kept going, never hesitating, never considering letting go. His training, his instinct, his heart, all working as one. Minutes stretched like hours. Time moved in that strange, slow way it does when everything matters and nothing is certain. They finally slid into the mud-slick bank, branches and roots grabbing at their legs, trying to help or hinder. It was hard to say which. Ray dropped to his knees in the muck, reached long with both arms, hauled them both in together, with strength born of desperation, his heart pounding so hard it shook his ribs and made his vision blur. Buddy collapsed on his side in the mud, gasping great lungfuls of air, but still holding the cub gently until it lay safe on solid ground. Rain kept falling, relentless and cold. Both bodies trembled violently, while Ray knelt close, eyes wet with rain and tears he didn't bother to hide, knowing he'd just witnessed something rare and precious. The cub's eyes were closed, its breath barely a thread. Ray scooped up both animals, Buddy first, wrapped in an old emergency towel from behind the truck seat, then the cub cradled against his chest. The dog shivered hard, but never took his eyes off the small creature he'd saved.
They rolled hard for the wildlife clinic 40 minutes away, wipers slapping frantically, tires hissing on flooded blacktop. Ray drove faster than he should have, one hand on the wheel, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds to make sure both animals were still breathing. In the parking lot, he cut the engine and sat for just a moment. Rain drummed the roof in steady percussion. He set his forehead on the steering wheel and whispered a small prayer, something he hadn't done since he was a boy in his mother's church. Please keep this little one breathing. Please keep Buddy safe. Steady our hands. Give us a little more time. Amen. He drew a slow breath, wiped his eyes with his sleeve, and opened the door. Inside the bright exam room that smelled of antiseptic and wet animal, the vet worked with practiced efficiency. She washed away the mud with warm water, listened carefully to the thin chest and back with her stethoscope, checked the small paws and delicate ribs with gentle, experienced hands. The cub gave a paper-thin cry, blinked once, then opened both eyes fully, and everyone in the room let out the breath they'd been holding in unison. They checked Buddy, too, of course, just scrapes on his paws and legs and bone-deep exhaustion from fighting water that could easily take down a grown man. Nothing rest and food wouldn't heal. A veterinarian came out after a thorough examination with a careful, hopeful smile. Said the cub had a real chance if given steady care and monitoring for the next several days. Ray put his palm on Buddy's damp fur, leaned down close to the black ears, and whispered, "Thank you, boy. Thank you." Pride shining bright through the worry that still gripped his chest. Right then, in that sterile white room with fluorescent lights humming overhead, Ray knew he'd been allowed to witness a bond that crossed the ancient line between species, something that would live in him forever and change how he saw the world. The Wildlife Center asked Ray to lead the next crucial step in the cub's recovery. They wanted him to help Buddy care for the young mountain lion in a semi-wild rehabilitation pen where it could heal properly and begin learning the skills it would need. Those first days were remarkably quiet. The cub kept to a corner of the enclosure, watchful and deeply unsure, instinct telling it to fear, but memory whispering of rescue. Buddy lay nearby on the grass, not pushing, not demanding, just breathing, slow and steady, making those low, warm, rumbling sounds that dogs create deep in their chests until the frightened little heart finally settled. One sunny afternoon, the cub inched forward on uncertain paws, sniffed cautiously at Buddy's broad shoulder, then gently bumped its small head against the black fur in a gesture of trust. A small yes. Permission granted, bond accepted. After that breakthrough, they played like children without a care, chasing circles in the pen, tumbling in dry grass, rolling and yipping without worry or fear. It was a sight that stopped visitors in their tracks. Cold nights came riding a north wind, and Ray would arrive early in the mornings to find them curled together in the shelter, two very different shapes sharing body heat like brothers made by chance rather than blood.
The cub's strength returned quickly with proper food and safety. His gold coat dried to a healthy shine. Eyes cleared and brightened with a spark of wild purpose growing inside. Other rangers made excuses to stop by, hands gripping the fence rail, shaking their heads in wonder at the sight of an aging black lab and a mountain lion cub choosing each other's company so completely. Ray tended both animals with one devoted heart. He called it a gift from the woods, a reminder of why he'd given his life to this work. When the cub grew steady and confident, they moved him to a larger rehabilitation space with more trees, more room to run and climb, more challenges. A pen designed to feel close to the real wild. Ray taught what he could about hunting. He set up training exercises with hanging lures that swung and moved. Hid food in high branches and low hollows to sharpen the cub's natural instincts to stalk and spring and capture. Buddy stood outside the fence during these sessions, tail up and waving, barking short, cheerful encouragement like an older brother watching from the sidelines, saying, "You've got this, keep going." At first, the cub missed his mark more often than not, misjudging distance and speed. But he grew quick and light on his feet, muscles developing, coordination sharpening. He learned to creep low through grass, to burst forward with explosive power, to land precisely where he aimed. Ray kept careful notes on a small weathered pad he carried in his shirt pocket, smiled warmly at each small victory, and felt the quiet worry growing about the inevitable day that would surely come. A wilder, more distant light grew steadily in those young golden eyes as weeks passed. The cub was becoming what he was meant to be. Yet when Buddy came near the fence, the young lion still ran eagerly to press his head against the wire in gratitude and affection. Sometimes they raced the full length of the enclosure together, one outside and one in, like kids on opposite sides of a schoolyard fence, making anyone who watched both laugh and ache at the same time. Ray knew the clock was running down. The cub would need to go back to open land and find his own kind eventually. Many quiet evenings, Ray sat on an old folding chair by the pen, watching the two unlikely friends play together in the fading light, hands wrapped around a warm mug of coffee, not ready to let go of this perfect, temporary thing. 6 months passed in what felt like both an eternity and an instant. The cub filled out completely, muscles smooth and powerful under his tawny coat, walk confident, eyes bright and sharp with the unmistakable look of a hunter born ready for his true life. Release day finally came, planned carefully with the wildlife team. They prepped a special transport truck to carry him to distant protected grassland, where a small population of his species lived and hunted. Ray brought Buddy to the pen one last time to say goodbye properly.
Buddy pressed his whole body against the chain-link fence. The cub did the same from his side. Buddy licked the young face through the wire mesh, and the cub rubbed back hard, trying to get as close as the barrier would allow. They made sounds back and forth to each other, half bark and half rumble, a final conversation in their own private language that no human could fully understand. Ray's chest ached with the profound sadness of necessary endings. He hugged Buddy hard and whispered into the soft black fur, "We gave him his chance, boy. We gave him life. That's the job. That's what we do." Buddy lifted his graying muzzle and let out one strong, clear bark that seemed to carry everything he felt. It hung in the morning air long enough to make the whole crew stand completely still, eyes bright with shared emotion. The young lion turned his head and looked at Buddy for a long, measured moment, as if deliberately fixing the picture in his mind of the black dog who pulled him from dark water and taught him it was safe to trust, safe to play, safe to be young before becoming wild again. The transport crate door opened. The young mountain lion stepped inside with his head held high,
dignified and ready, but with a soft look still visible in his amber eyes that said he would remember. Out on the vast grassland preserve, under an endless blue sky, the release gate swung wide. He took the ramp down to open ground on steady paws, tasted pure freedom on the wind for the first time in his conscious memory, then ran like he had always known exactly how, muscles bunching and releasing with perfect efficiency. He sent one long, piercing roar across the wide, golden silence. Buddy sat beside Ray in the tall grass, watching that tawny shape grow smaller and smaller against the horizon, and gave one final bark, the kind that clearly says, "Go well, be safe, be wild." Ray set his weathered hand on Buddy's warm back and said quietly, "We gave him a miracle worth living for, boy. We gave him everything." In Ray's mind, that long, wet day of storm and rescue never fades or loses its sharp edges. Now and then it rises up clear as cold rain, reminding him in moments of doubt that the world still keeps its wonders and its miracles, that courage and kindness can cross any boundary, that love doesn't ask about species or sense before it acts. If you believe in stories where bravery and compassion change lives forever, give this tale a like, share it with friends who need to remember that good exists, and subscribe for more journeys with Ranger Ray and Buddy, the Black Labrador, guardians of the Greenwoods.